One of the areas of law that I particularly like to practice in is called collaborative law. And that collaborative law, there's some information on my website, and there's some links to other websites that tell you more about collaborative law. But basically, it's a way for people to get divorced outside of the court system. And the way that I do collaborative law cases is I only do them when there's when it's an interdisciplinary process. And that's a big word that kind of means, or it does mean, that there are other professionals that are on the case. A communications facilitator, which is a mental health professional whose job is to facilitate communications, to keep the process moving along, to help deal with emotional issues that come up in settlement meetings. And it's highly effective having a communications facilitator. The other common neutral in cases that I have had collaboratively is a financial professional. And the financial professional is very helpful in gathering the information about the assets where you don't have to pay the attorneys to do it. And the communications facilitator, one of their big roles is to work out the parenting plan. So even though in a collaborative case you have two attorneys and potentially two or more neutrals, many people think, oh, well, that's just really expensive. But what they don't realize is that some of these professionals you're only paying one of them to do a job that if you hadn't had them, you would each be paying attorneys to do. And that's a real benefit to collaborative law. Now, in Tarrant County in particular, there's not a lot of attorneys who have been trained in collaborative law, and of the ones who have been trained in collaborative law, there aren't that many that do it regularly. I've been practicing collaborative law since 2001 and really enjoy the process, but for people who want to do collaborative law, it's important that the spouse hires an attorney who also is trained in collaborative law. And so oftentimes when I have a client who's interested in collaborative law, I will give a list of attorneys that their spouse might speak to about divorce. I'm not doing that because I want them to hire some attorney that's just going to lay down and then we're going to roll over them. Collaborative law is a very precise process, and it requires a great amount of skill and a conscious awareness for the attorney in what they're doing. And I like to have a collaborative case with an attorney that I know is skillful in it, because the result for both of the clients is going to end up being better. And that's why I give out names of attorneys that I've had cases with that I know that I can trust when they say something that they are being truthful. Collaborative law is really good for people who want to do their divorce outside of the court system. They just want what's fair. They don't want to spend a lot of money litigating. They don't want to be down at the courthouse and to be seen by neighbors, or to have that sort of public viewing of their personal difficulties. They want control over when they're going to be dealing with their divorce and not be told by the court, well, you have to be here on this day for a hearing. So collaborative law is actually a contractual agreement where you and your spouse agree that you're going to have this process that's going to happen outside of court. Generally, meetings are held between the attorney's offices. Not always. Sometimes I have cases where we're always meeting at my office, or we're always meeting at the other person's office, because geographically that works best for everybody. It's an interdisciplinary process, which means that we have a mental health professional and a financial professional that helps the team gather information and come up with a parenting plan. The communications facilitator does that a lot. The financial professional helps put together the inventory and appraisement. And when those people are doing those two tasks, they're taking work that attorneys otherwise would have to do, and then the attorneys don't have to do it. So you don't have to pay the highest wage person to do a task. You have people who are specialized in that particular area and also cost less to do it. In collaborative law, part of the contract that you sign says that in the end, if one of us decides that we don't like this process, we want to go to the judge and have the judge make a decision, then you have to actually sign a piece of paper saying, I don't want to do this anymore. You have to wait a period of time unless there's, extenuating circumstances. And then those attorneys would withdraw, and then you would be free to go hire attorneys who are going to litigate the case. Many people think that collaborative law is for people who agree or are going to agree. And that's not really what collaborative law is about. Sometimes I have people come in and they think, oh, I want to do collaborative law, and then I talk to them and I realize they're very close to a settlement, or they already have a settlement, and I tell them you don't need that much. We call it process. When you have attorneys and other professionals doing stuff, we call that process. So if you already have an agreement, then you don't really need collaborative law. Collaborative law is really an alternative for people who are unable on their own to sit down with their spouse and work out a settlement of the property or issues concerning the children. It's a way to come up with a solution to those things without going to court, without doing these very archaic ways that we gather information in litigation, where we send out things with Latin terms in it, and it's just very inefficient. Taking depositions, which you might have seen on TV, what a deposition looks like. Anyway, in collaborative law, if we want information of like the last 3 years bank statements, rather than sending out this thing called interrogatories or requests for production, rather than sending that out, we just sit in the meeting and we say, Joe, do you think at the next meeting that you could bring in your last 3-year statements for these bank accounts? And lo and behold, at the next meeting, he has in fact done that. Oftentimes in litigation, when we send out these, like I say, these legal documents to get information, one side just doesn't respond, and then you have to spend time, like forcing them to respond. So collaborative law is really it is a very viable opportunity for people to kind of have more control about how the information gathering is done, and because there's other professionals involved on it, it's a very almost holistic team that's really working together to get it done. The attorneys, you have to have 2 attorneys, so you and your spouse would both have attorneys. You can't have just one attorney, but you both have attorneys. Those attorneys are they advocate within the process. They can advocate, but they don't do it in an adversarial manner. They do it in a problem-solving manner. Like, we have this situation, we've got to divide the estate, we have to come up with how the children are going to be parented post-divorce. What is the best way that we can help these people come up with the answers to these things? And in collaborative law, it's very custom. Like, if you like custom things, then collaborative law is something that you really should look at, because every case is really different, because we delve so much into more information. In an average litigated case, you're going to have a standard possession schedule, but in collaborative law, we really look at, well, what are the hours that dad works? What are the hours that mom works? Is there some other way that we can do it besides a standard possession schedule? These are the types of benefits that you can have.